Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiv Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraya Nashtuprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavate Sevaya Bhagavati Uttam Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishti. So continuing with the discussion on Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 1, the activities of Maharaj Priyavrat, text number 16 onwards. So as we know, Lord Brahma is speaking to Maharaj Priyavrat. Mukto api tavad vibhribyat swadeham arabdam ashnan abhimana shunyaha yathanubhutam pratiyat nidraha kim tvani dehaya gunanna vringte. Even if one is liberated, he nevertheless accepts the body he has received according to his past karma. Without misconceptions, however, he regards his enjoyment and suffering due to that karma the way an awakened person regards a dream he had while sleeping. He thus remains steadfast and never works to achieve another material body under the influence of the three modes of material nature. So previous verse, Brahmaji said, my dear Priyavrat, according to our association with different modes of material nature, the Supreme Personality of Godhead gives us our specific bodies and the happiness and distress we achieve. One must therefore remain situated as he is and be conducted by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Exactly as a blind man is led by a person who has eyes with which to see. So that was for conditioned soul. Now Brahma is saying, even if somebody is liberated, he nevertheless accepts the body he has received according to his past karma. Without misconceptions, however, he regards his enjoyment and suffering due to that karma the way an awakened person regards a dream when he had while sleeping. So the difference between a conditioned and a liberated soul is that the conditioned soul is under the concept of bodily life, whereas a liberated person knows that he is not the body but a spirit, different from the body. Priyavrat might have thought that although a conditioned soul is forced to act according to the laws of nature, why should he, who was far more advanced in spiritual understanding, accept the same kind of bondage and impediments to spiritual advancement? To answer this doubt, Lord Brahma informed him that even those who are liberated do not resent accepting in the present body the results of their past activities. While sleeping, one dreams many unreal things, but when he awakens, he disregards them and makes progress in factual life. Similarly, a liberated person, one who has completely understood that he is not the body but a spirit soul, disregards past activities performed in ignorance and performs his present activities in such a way that they produce no reactions. This is described in Bhagavad Gita, Yagyarthat karmano anyatra lokoyam karma bandhana. If one performs activities for the satisfaction of the Supreme Personality, the Yajna Purusha, his work, does not produce reactions, whereas karmis who act for themselves are bound by the reactions of their work. A liberated person therefore does not think about whatever he has ignorantly done in the past. Instead, he acts in such a way that he will not produce another body by fruitive activities. So liberated person and conditioned soul. So previous verse was about the conditioned soul, and now Brahmaji is talking about the liberated person, where Priyavrat Maharaj is thinking, I'm so advanced, why should I get into all these material entanglements? And Lord Brahma says, even if you are liberated, you still have to do your activities based on your body. So you don't do activities which will bind you, but do the activities that the liberated soul does. So he acts in such a way that he will not produce another body by fruitive activities. As clearly mentioned in Bhagavad Gita, one who engages in full devotional service, who does not fall down in any circumstance, at once transcends the modes of material nature and thus comes to the level of Brahman. Regardless of what we have done in our past lives, if we engage ourselves in unalloyed devotional service to the Lord in this life, we will always be situated in the Brahmbhuta state. Brahmbhuta platform or Brahmbhuta stage is where one is completely liberated. So just like in fourth canto Prachetas, there's a shloka, Canto 4, chapter 30, text 20. Always engaging in activities of devotion service, devotees feel ever increasingly fresh and new in their activities. In such a liberated stage, Brahmbhuta stage, one is never bewildered. So that is a stage Brahmaji is talking about. So in that stage, one is always free from reactions and will not be obliged to accept another material body because he is doing everything for the satisfaction of the Lord. Tyaktva deham punarjanma naiti mameti swarja. After giving up the body, one who has acted in that way does not accept another material body, but instead goes back home, back to Godhead. So even a liberated soul, he has to do the activities. But the activities he does is for the pleasure of the Supreme. Bhayam pramatasya vaneshvapi syad yatah saaste sahashat sapatnah jitendriyasya atmarate rabudhasya grihashramaha kimnu karoti avadyam. Even if he goes from forest to forest, one who is not self-controlled must always fear material bondage because he is living with 6 co-wives. Who are the 6 co-wives? The mind and the knowledge acquiring senses. So even if his working senses are in control, but his knowledge acquiring senses are always working. And the mind. Even householder life, however, cannot harm a self-satisfied, learned man who has conquered his senses. Srila Narottam Das Thakur has sung, Grihe va vanete thake hakuranga baledake. Whether one is situated in the forest or at home, if he is engaged in the devotion service of Lord Chaitanya, he is a liberated person. Here also this is repeated. For one who has not controlled his senses, going to the forest to become a so-called yogi is meaningless. Because his uncontrolled mind and senses are going with him, he cannot achieve anything, even by giving up household life and staying in the forest. Formerly, many mercantile men from the up-country of India used to go to Bengal. And thus there is a familiar saying, if you go to Bengal, your fortune will go with you. So this fortune or whatever is written in your forehead, it remains with you wherever, it remains with us wherever we go. So the point is, one has to control his senses. That is the basic idea of yoga. And nicely said in the shloka that even if one goes to forest, but his mind is not in control, or his senses are not in control, he will just create more bondage for himself. Our first concern, therefore, should be to control the senses, and the senses cannot be controlled unless engaged in the devotional service of the Lord. Our most important duty is to engage the senses in devotional service. Rishikena Rishikesha Sevanam Bhakti Ruchyate. Bhakti means engagement of the purified senses in the service of the Lord. So this is our duty. We don't say engage the senses completely, just like some people say, just enjoy fully, and once you're frustrated, then you will turn towards God. Or we don't say do not completely refrain from senses, work, work of the senses, because the inclination to enjoy the senses is still there. We say engage the senses in the service of Krishna. Give them the higher taste. Do everything. Who says don't eat? Who says uh, don't have a nice house or clean, better look, good looking house? Or who says don't have a car, nice car? Of course, we don't say I have a very expensive car beyond our means. That's not what we say. But we do everything so that we can engage fully in the service of Krishna. Car is there, fine. Engage it in the service of Krishna. So everything and anything, because everything belongs to Supreme Lord, finally, everything comes from him, so everything can be used in his service. Herein Lord Brahma indicates that instead of going to the forest with uncontrolled senses, it is better and more secure to engage the senses in the service of the Lord. Even household life can do no harm to a self-controlled person acting in this way. It cannot force him into material bondage. Srila Rupa Goswami has further enunciated this position. Iha yasya hare radasya karmana manasa gira. Regardless of one's circumstances, if one fully engages his activities, mind and words in the devotional service of the Lord, he should be understood to be a liberated person. If he engages his activities fully, mind and words, karmana, manasa, gira. Gira means words. So this is all we have to do. So body for karmana, mind and words means we have to engage our BMW in the service of the Lord. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur was a responsible officer and a householder, yet his service to the cause of expanding the mission of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is unique. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur was a high court judge, and he was a very, very efficient judge, and the British government were very happy to have him in this position, and they would give him all the facilities he needed. In fact, those who went to Mayapur, if they remember, we went to the house where Bhaktivinoda Thakur used to live. And the British government, what they did, when he was posted there in Navadvip area, to facilitate his going to the court every morning, they laid a railway track up to his house. And that track is still there. Of course, the trains don't run on that because it's a narrow gauge track, but the track is still there. So the British government laid a track for him, so he could ride on the tram every morning to the court. And when he was appointed in Jagannath Puri, he basically took over the administration of Jagannath Puri temple also, and he discarded many activities that were fraudulently going on in the name of service of Lord Jagannath in the temple also. And so many people became his enemies. It always happens, actually. People become enemies if you're honest, and if you're doing your work honestly, then they don't like it, because then they cannot steal. But that was Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Srila Prabodhanand Saraswati Thakur says, Durdantendriya Kala Sarpa Patali Krotkata Danshtraite. The sense organs are certainly our greatest enemies, and if they are therefore compared to venomous serpents. However, if a venomous serpent is bereft of its poison fangs, it is no longer fearful. So the serpents, if you break the teeth, the poisonous teeth of the serpent, snake, then it's not fearful. So the senses on their own, senses I have no problem. It's just the uncontrolled senses or the senses going towards sense objects. That's a problem. So if you just break that tendency, the senses can be there. Senses are best friends if they're controlled. Similarly, if the senses are engaged in the service of the Lord, there is no need to fear their activities. The devotees in the Krishna consciousness movement move within this material world, but because their senses are fully engaged in the service of the Lord, they are always aloof from the material world. They're always living in a transcendental position. And Prabhupada showed by his example that how to live in this world where you have senses completely under your control. It is possible. It's very much possible. Prabhupada showed it. Yah shat sapatnam vijigishn mano griheshu nirvishya yatet purvam matteti durgashrit orjitarina shineshu kamam vicharet vipaschita. One who is situated in household life and who systematically conquers his mind and five sense organs is like a king in his fortress who conquers his powerful enemies. After one has been trained in household life and his lusty desires have decreased, he can move anywhere or everywhere without danger. The Vedic system of 4 varnas and 4 ashrams is very scientific, and its entire purpose is to enable one to control the senses. Before entering household life, Grihastha ashram, a student is fully trained to become Jitendriya, a conqueror of the senses. Such a mature student is allowed to become a householder, and because he was first trained in conquering his senses, he retires from household life and becomes Vanprastha as soon as the strong waves of youthful life are past, and he reaches the verge of old age at 50 years or slightly more. So this is why Vanprastha system was good, and the Gurukul system that was prevalent in those days. So the boys were given good training to be a brahmachari in the school. Nowadays, I mean, everything goes on in the name of freedom and education. But that wasn't the case earlier. Why? Because that is a time, first 25 years of one's life, that is a time one has to completely control his senses and engage them in studying, in education, gathering education, because that is the best age to study. And then one who becomes a good brahmachari, he becomes a good grihastha also. Then those who want to get married, they get married, they enter grihastha life, and then they take care of their family nicely, and then they take to Vanprastha afterwards. And then sannyas, followed by sannyas. Then after being further trained, he accepts sannyas. He is then a fully learned and renounced person who can move anywhere and everywhere without fear of being captivated by material desires. The senses are considered very powerful enemies. As a king in a strong fortress can conquer powerful enemies, so a householder in the Grihastha ashram, household life, can conquer the lusty desires of youth and be very secure when he takes Vanprastha and sannyas. So this is how the system was set up. But Kali Yuga means everything goes upside down. Tvam tvabja nabhangri saroja kosha durgashito nirjit shat sapatnaha bhungshvehe bhogan purushati dishtan vimukta sangha prakritim bhajasva. Lord Brahma continued, My dear Priyavrat, seek shelter inside the opening in the lotus of the feet of the Lord, whose navel is also like a lotus. Thus conquer the six sense organs, the mind and the knowledge acquiring senses. Accept material enjoyment because the Lord extraordinarily has ordered you to do this. You will thus always be liberated from material association and be able to carry out the Lord's orders in your constitutional position. So Lord Brahma is further saying, accept the material enjoyment because the Lord has ordered you to do this. Don't do this whimsically because Krishna wants you to do this. It's amazing that Lord Brahma said the same thing to four Kumaras. They were the firstborn, four Kumaras, and Brahmaji asked them to go ahead and increase the population, help him in filling up the universe with the living entities, and they said, no, we are not doing it. We don't want to do that. We don't want to get entangled. At that time, Brahmaji didn't give them all this knowledge. And in fact, he got so angry that within his eyebrows, Rudra appeared. But everybody's service to the Lord is unique. Priyavrat Maharaj, his service will be unique. Four Kumaras had a unique service to render to the Lord. So same medicine or same logic doesn't apply with everybody. So this is what, and everybody is unique. Everybody is different, and Krishna has a specific service for everybody, for all of us. There are three kinds of men within this material world. Those who are trying to enjoy the senses to the utmost are called karmis. Above them are the jnanis who try to conquer the urges of the senses. And above them are the yogis who have already conquered the senses. None of them, however, are situated in a transcendental position. Only devotees who belong to none of the above mentioned groups are transcendental. As explained in Bhagavad Gita, one who engages in full devotional service, who does not fall down in any circumstance, at once transcends the modes of material nature and thus comes to the level of Brahman. Lord Brahma herein advises Priyavrat to remain transcendental in the fortress, not of family life, but of the lotus feet of the Lord. Abjad Nabhangri Saroja. When a bumblebee enters the opening of a lotus flower and drinks its honey, it is fully protected by the petals of the lotus. The bee is undisturbed by the sunshine and other external influences. Similarly, one who always seeks shelter at the lotus feet of the personality of Godhead is protected from all dangers. A very nice example given. When a bumblebee enters this lotus flower and drinks the honey, it is fully protected by the petals of the lotus. So similarly, the devotee, one who seeks shelter at the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is protected from all dangers. And this is explained in Bhagavatam. For one who has taken shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord, everything becomes easier. Indeed, even crossing the great ocean of nescience, Bhavan Buddhi, is exactly like crossing the hoof print created by calf, Vatspadam. For such a devotee, there is no caution of remaining in a place where every step is dangerous. In fact, this shloka is also spoken by Lord Brahma in 10th canto to the Supreme Lord, actually. And here he is pretty much saying the same thing to Priyavrat Maharaj. Our actual duty is to carry out the supreme order of the personality of Godhead. If we are fixed in our determination to carry out the supreme order of the Lord, we are always secure, regardless of where we are situated, whether in hell or in heaven. Herein the words Prakritim Bhajasva are very significant. Prakritim refers to one's constitutional position. Every living entity has a constitutional position of being an eternal servant of the Lord. Therefore, Lord Brahma advised Priyavrat, be situated in your original position as an eternal servant of the Lord. If you carry out his orders, you will never fall, even in the midst of material enjoyment. Material enjoyment achieved by dint of one's fruitive activities differs from material enjoyment given by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So material enjoyments can be achieved either way. We can do our activities or Krishna himself gives us. A devotee sometimes appears to be in a very opulent position, but he accepts that position to follow the orders of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, a devotee is never affected by material influences. The devotee in the Krishna consciousness movement are preaching all over the world in accordance with the order of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. They have to meet many karmis, but by the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they are unaffected by material influences. He has blessed them, as described in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Kabu na badi ve tumhara vishaya tarang, punarapi eitai pave morasang. A sincere devotee who engages in the service of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu by preaching his cult all over the world will never be affected by Vishaya Tarang, material influences. On the contrary, in due course of time, he will return to the shelter of the lotus feet of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and will thus have perpetual association with him. This is the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He's Mahavadanya Avatar, most beneficent. And he says, one who is engaged in the preaching service of my mission, in due course of time, he will return to the shelter of lotus feet of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He will never be affected by Vishaya Tarang, material influences. It can happen that he can fall down, but Mahaprabhu will never ever forsake him. That's the mercy of Chaitanya. So sooner or later he will come back to the shelter, and he'll say Chaitanya Charitamrita, and will thus have perpetual association with him. So Mahaprabhu's devotees, his servants, his followers, they will be very, very, very merciful. And that is why this movement is spreading all over the world. Because of the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and more so is the mercy of Nityananda Prabhu, because they don't consider if one is qualified or not qualified. They just want to give mercy to everybody and anybody. So we just have to catch their mercy and get their mercy and get into this mood of preaching. Just give out this mercy to more and more, so we get more and more mercy. That's all. Okay, so I guess we can stop here. See anybody has any questions or comments?
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, nice example of bumblebee. The moment you listen to it,
Yeah.
the moment you listen to it, it gives you very nice feeling of protection, actually.
Yep. Okay, so I guess we can stop here. You all have a wonderful and safe day. Hare Krishna.
Thank you,
Jai Srila
Prabhuji. Hare
Prabhupada.
Krishna.
Krishna.
Jai Srila Prabhupada.